Hello, hello, hello! In anticipation of Mass Effect Andromeda, I decided to come back to Mass Effect 3 and Dragon Age Inquisition multiplayer. And to tell you the truth, I am very worried for Mass Effect Andromeda multiplayer. I do believe that all of those games, starting with Mass Effect 3, Dragon Age Inquisition, and now Andromeda, they are primarily, obviously, single-player games. But for whatever reason, BioWare decided to add multiplayer aspect to it, which is a welcome sight to any game really, if done properly. Whereas Mass Effect 3 multiplayer was well made, just useless in the broader sense of that word, Dragon Age Inquisition's multiplayer was barely playable, to be honest with you. Let's start with Mass Effect 3. First of all, it had some kind of tie-in with the main game. You had to play it every day, otherwise your counter would lose a percentage of galactic readiness, which would affect your outcome of the game, or rather, not your outcome of the game, but if you would have the best choice for the end of the game, out of the 3 endings available to you, which is Synergy, I believe. Which is, at the very best, is a lazy way to tie in multiplayer into a single-player campaign. Now, saying that, the multiplayer itself was well made. You had characters, certain character classes, weapons, customizations, and so on and so forth. And it played nicely, it played smoothly, apart from a few glitches here and there, but, you know, we can overlook those. The only problem was the variety of tasks and maps. At the very beginning you only got like 3 or 4 of those, and then they tweaked them a little bit. They made it so that you couldn't, you know, stay in the same place for the entire match. They made it so that, you know, you could be flanked from any position. They added hazards, environmental hazards I mean, and so on and so forth. But it was still 10-wave horde mode, and it did not change throughout. There was no PvP, obviously. There was no other modes like whole capture the flag or whatever, King of the Hill, whichever modes you could come up with. Basically, it was just the horde mode, and to be honest, a very lazy horde mode in that regard. I have a very, very sneaky suspicion that the only reason there was a multiplayer for Mass Effect 3, at least, was microtransactions, sorry. And that kind of, you know, betrays your trust in BioWare a little bit, because I know that they're a very, very loving company to their products. They do everything to the fullest, and they try to make their product the best, as good as they can. But this kind of blatant addition to a perfectly good game, which doesn't particularly need multiplayer at all. It's not that kind of a game. When you buy Call of Duty, you do not expect a great single-player story. You expect a great fun in multiplayer, right? So the same here. When you're buying a BioWare game, you're expecting a great single-player story, character development, etc., etc. You are not buying it for the multiplayer. So the actual game didn't need it. People would have still bought it and would have still had hours upon hours in it. Anyway, it was there. We played it. I spent around like 60 hours in the multiplayer, I think.
Incredible.
I unlocked some of the characters, maybe half of them. I spent about 20 euros in the shop, you know, buying the platinum or whatever it was called. I was annoyed that it was boring and grindy, and yet I still spent a lot of time in it. Now Dragon Age came out, Inquisition, and it had its own multiplayer, which on paper and as an idea actually is a very good idea. You have a dungeon, you have 3 friends with you, and you have to complete the dungeon. It's you know, MMO bread and butter for dungeons, basically. It's like a raid in Destiny or whatever, right? And you would think it would be great, but to be honest, it was barely playable. I have never been kicked from the game in Dragon Age Inquisition multiplayer, but if you look at the footage that you're witnessing right now, it is very laggy in the worst kind of way. It's not that it's unplayable, so you restart the game to get a better connection or whatever. It just ever so slightly messes up your movements, messes up the sounds. Sometimes you don't hear the sounds. If you noticed at the beginning of the video, some of the sounds came a few seconds later. Say when you picked up some loot, the ka-ching sound came 2 or 3 seconds later, and so on and so forth. Again, it was playable, but it was half-assed. And I really dislike games that half-ass a part of, you know, their finished product. I mean, just don't do it. Again, Dragon Age Inquisition didn't need multiplayer apart for probably the microtransactions that they had in it. For the silver, which you could obviously buy in the Xbox store or PlayStation store. When it comes to Mass Effect Andromeda multiplayer, we know that it's going to be another Horde mode, which is a bit of a letdown, because if you could imagine, if you've seen the latest gameplay series trailer with the exploration, they show vaults that you will be able to explore in a single player. Wouldn't it be awesome to have something like that with the idea that Dragon Age Inquisition have, and put it into Mass Effect universe with Mass Effect guns and so on and so forth, add some Destiny platforming to it, like the first raid or the second raid that they had, and make a great raid that would take you about half an hour to complete with your friends, maybe an hour depending on the difficulty and then the length. And then I wouldn't even mind if they make it a paid DLC for every new raid, or every like a package raid. But to be honest, what we witnessed in Inquisition was absolutely horrendous, because first of all, I don't know why I'm doing this. There is no reason for me to be running in this dungeon, killing those Venatori. As far as I understand, your war room, where you assigned certain tasks to your 3 helpers, what was it, the assassin, the spy master, the warrior, and the diplomat, those are the missions that they send their respective people on. But you are never told that specifically in the multiplayer menu itself, which again is beyond me. Why not? Why wouldn't they? You know how in the start of the video we hear Liana saying something about that Venatori are held up in those ruins. Why not give a little bit more narration, so that we get a setting and we could actually role play? Because even like a paragraph of words from her would be better if she could say there is certain papers gone missing, la la la, and we sent such and such people. Their mission is to go through the entire ruins, clearing out certain sections of it, and so on and so forth. That would give us more things to imagine, things to go on with. Another thing about the Dragon Age Inquisition multiplayer, for example, if you look closely at this particular playthrough, I'm playing on Threatening, and I only have, I think, 3 or 4 characters upgraded, as in promoted, and I am literally cutting through them like through butter. They do not pose a threat to me at all. I could run this particular mission solo with no problem. However, the archer over there is having a major trouble, and I believe if I use my archer now as well, I would not be able to solo this mission in any way I would try it. I would just the balancing issues with this particular multiplayer is ridiculous. I don't particularly think that all of those problems would besiege Mass Effect Andromeda. I do believe that they would spend more time on it, but I would hate to see the multiplayer in Andromeda being abandoned, because that's what happened with Dragon Age Inquisition's multiplayer. At some point, they just abandoned it. Like, they have a section for free chests that you would get for some, like N7 weekends or something like this, like they had in Mass Effect 3 multiplayer. But as I recall, I only got like 2 free chests for like in the first few months of the game's release, and then afterwards it just stopped coming. Any news about the multiplayer special events or whatever, they just kind of slowly but surely forgotten about the game. Obviously there is some kind of a product lifetime for anything, including the multiplayer, but still it's a bit sad to see it to run out so quickly, especially when it has so much potential. And for Mass Effect Andromeda, I really wish they would make the multiplayer also a little bit story driven and less repetitive, because it will have to be repetitive if it's horde mode. But if they add a little bit of backstory to it, it would be so nice. Anyways, that's what I think. Let me know what you are expecting off of the multiplayer in Mass Effect Andromeda. Let me know what you want to see in the future videos. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Ciao!